invest in and support technologies that can help and infrastructure that can help reimagine how technology is built. Quantum evidently has a lot of potential to sort of like change the way the field is developing. And so we're really excited to support Unitary Foundation and this session in particular, especially because it talks about grant making and why open source is so important to invest in specifically with regards to quantum.
Great. Thank you, Hannah. And on behalf of the Unitary Foundation, I wanted to thank you and Ziad and the rest of the foundation for your support of our work in this field, and excited to share a little bit more about our approach and how we are viewing the roles of grant making and community building in our field over the next hour or so. Veena, whenever you're ready to go to the next slide. Great. So I'll start also with just a very brief intro of myself for those who I haven't met. My name is Ben Castanon. I'm CEO of Unitary Foundation. Spent about 15 years in the intersections of science and art and technology, looking for ways to scale up more impactful support mechanisms for people operating at the vanguards of their fields, while at the same time thinking about how do we build communities that are more open and multidisciplinary to advance those fields as well. Today, we're going to talk about Unitary Foundation's approach to grant making within quantum tech. And then also around, Veena will take us through our community building work as well, and we'll talk a little bit about our vision for the future towards the end and save some time for questions. Next slide. Okay, so Unitary Foundation, for those of you who might not know us, our mission is to create a quantum technology ecosystem that benefits the most people. We do this through three approaches, and you can go to the next slide, Veena. Three approaches: microgrants, research, and community building. Today, we'll be talking about two of those approaches. The microgrants and community side, and we're always excited to talk more about our R&D work, and I know we've detailed some of that in some of our previous presentations with Mozilla, and would be happy to chat more with anyone should they be interested. Next slide. Okay, so when Unitary Foundation was established in 2018, and I should say this continues to be largely true today, there were two pre-existing funding opportunities really in our field. One was through traditional governmental support, right? National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, things like that. And the incentivized output for those grants was research, right? Fundamental research, and usually in the form of papers, which absolutely helps advance the science, but there's a lot more to building an ecosystem than just that. On the other side, you had small but growing to the extent that at this point quite substantial VC support for new companies, right? And so there was a support mechanism with an incentivized output for profit, right, to create companies entering the field, which we see at a pretty wonderful clip. And so that section of the ecosystem is growing, but it really leaves still quite a lot of holes that Unitary Foundation was established to start to help fill if we were going to build an open and healthy ecosystem. Next slide. So one of the biggest and most obvious holes right there at the beginning was the development of infrastructure. How do you support infrastructure? How do you create the backbone for a new frontier tech field? On the right, you see what is the internet ecosystem, courtesy of the Internet Society. That, right, if you were to try to build and establish this kind of ecosystem with just those two support mechanisms that we saw in the previous slide, it really wasn't going to happen. And so we see this as a really wonderful opportunity for grant making to help ensure that we are creating robust infrastructure, but robust infrastructure that is open, it's accessible, multidisciplinary, it's safe, it's independent. Uh, None of those things will happen by accident. And we see philanthropic approaches as taking really important steps in these early days to make sure that uh, those tenets are diffused throughout the ecosystem as it grows. Next slide. One of the other important opportunities that we have is to learn from, take the lessons learned, right, from past large scale philanthropic investment in frontier tech. Um, One obvious example would be AI. Here's a very brief snapshot of some of the initiatives going on right now in that space. We have an opportunity in quantum technology to make sure that we are looking to these initiatives and building upon their successes and looking to mitigate the the failure modes around things that either are unsuccessful on their face or that continue to um, continue the sort of path towards privatization or things of that nature, right? We have a lot to be able to learn from, and it's important for us to take those opportunities to make sure that we're doing as good a job as possible. Next slide. So we took a look at this environment, right, this ecosystem, and thought to ourselves, right, what is the first and most obvious source of support that we could build and start providing immediately, right, through the form of grant making. And the long and short of it was we saw the most impactful approach to ROI in a early growing space was that more people should be incentivized to make quantums open tools and public goods. And we wanted to start providing that effort. Next slide. And so we took inspiration from Nadia Asparahova, who herself ran a microgrant program called Helium Grants and started our own microgrant program. This was an effort initiated by Unitary Foundation's founder, Will Zhang. And the idea would be rapid response, no strings attached grants to people who have good ideas and want to build things in quantum technology. And for those who are curious more about microgrant programs writ large, Nadia's GitHub has a lot of really interesting resources from cross-disciplinary microgrant programs for you to check out. Next slide. So with that as inspiration, our goals in creating this program, like I was noting, was the creation of open source tools, the creation of a more accessible on-ramp to quantum for people who have good ideas, ensure that we are seeding this field with open source advocates who can carry on those open source ethoses wherever it is that they go in the field, and to create a bottom-up and multidisciplinary approach to funding that is really, it's transparent, it's flexible, and ultimately responsive to the needs of the field today. And with that approach, we have been fortunate enough to find a lot of success. Next slide. So one of the other ways to sort of codify what we saw as an important part of our work, and this infographic is courtesy of our quantum open source software survey, which for if anyone on this call hasn't had a chance to check that out, encourage you to do so. One of the most important pieces of the microgrant program, and as Veena will detail later, some of the community building work that we do is really making sure that the distribution of individuals working in open source public goods in quantum is diversified across all sorts of disciplines, right? What we don't want is just folks with PhDs in quantum to only be the ones who can contribute. We want lots of people to be able to contribute. And so we want to distribute some of these numbers, right, down and to the right if we can. There will always be space for every single one of these categories in the work that we do, and I would say especially that bottom right, the other and other. We want to make sure that people who don't fit into these categories feel like they have a home for support here as well. Next slide. And I see a question pop up to that grant. The other and other category are for folks who themselves, as they are filling out this survey, feel they do not fit into any of the definitions. So we do leave it open-ended. And so it really sort of captures everyone else who might not be in come from a more traditional background to quantum technology. Next slide. Okay. So to catch you up to speed, right, from 2018 to today, at this point, we've given out around 150 grants, and each of those represent new open source tools in quantum technology. That's across over 30 countries, as you can see, with close to 1,000 contributors and maintainers at this point working across those tools. And also something that we've been really excited and happy to see is that these initial grants of $4,000 each have resulted not just in all these tools, but also 4 new startups and 1 new nonprofit as well. And it should be noted in terms of the structure of the program, the microgrants they're $4,000 each. They're rapid response, which means we will get back to the applicant within 1 month of applying. It's no strings attached, no equity and no interest. And it really is looking for these, 3 to 6 month projects to really help them get off the ground and get started and get introduced to the wider open source community. Next slide. I'm going to talk quickly about what we see as who we see as successful applicants for us. And we do try to, like I was noting, be as open and expensive as possible when it comes to thinking about who can give us good ideas. But we look for them to be well scoped. They should be within 1 to 6 month scale projects, though those aren't hard stops, but that tends to be successful. The advisory board that decides on these grants weighs potential impact, feasibility, and ability to execute on the idea. And so we want that impact really to be, right, we are impacting the community in some tangible way with a new tool. So they're rarely fundamental research ideas or convenings or closed source software. If you have ideas for things in those 3 categories, we're happy to hear from you and happy for you to come up with an idea that proves us wrong in that respect. But they tend to be open source tools and not these other categories. And successful applicants can really articulate how they define project success. They understand what their impact will be with this new tool, and they really know what they want to get out of it and can articulate that quite clearly. They also bring a passion for open source community and an excitement to contribute to the commons. They don't have to be leaders in the open source field. There is no barrier to entry on our application process, but want to be active community members will make a project more successful. Next slide. So wanted to also just sort of say, with the development of this program, and we see interest in it continuing to grow year after year, which is really, really wonderful for us. This is just one small start to what we see as an expanded funding opportunity to support for quantum technology. You can see on the left, we are hoping that some of the government support goes out of just research and into standards and deployment work. And on the VC side, we would love to see more support for companies who are building open source software. But philanthropy, as you can see, has a long list of really wonderful potential projects that can deliver important ROI, use case open tools, open source infrastructure projects, community building, fellowships, long shot research ideas, multidisciplinary collaborations are all really sort of fertile ground for philanthropic approaches that we'd be excited to talk more about if for those on this call who might be interested. Next slide. Okay. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Veena to talk a little bit more about how we complement our grant making approach with community development work, and then at the end we'll have a bit more time for questions. So Veena, hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name is Veena. I'm part of the operations team at Unitary Foundation. So I oversee a lot of this community development work as well as the microgrant program. So afterwards, if you're not ready to ask questions today, I will be the person you can email and ask more questions to. I'm happy to kind of go through anything that you're interested in. So the first part of the presentation was really about pillar one, which was grant making, right? And while grant making democratizes capital, our second pillar, which is community development, democratizes access. So we approach our programs as entry ramps or on-ramps because they provide structured, low-stakes ways for newcomers to enter what we see as a high-stakes field right now. And so whether that's through code, design, or in-person strategy, these programs are about lowering the activation energy required for participation in quantum tech. Just as a note, these programs of ours are just part of a larger ecosystem. And there are times when our programming doesn't necessarily fit with the person where they are in their current journey. So we usually connect them to a sister or partner organization to help them move forward. And then they can connect back with us when they're ready or when we're ready. And I'll touch on those opportunities a little later in the presentation. So for today, I'm going to talk about our three biggest programs, which is Unitary Hack, Unitary Design, and Unitary Con. So let's dive into Unitary Hack. This is our unique bug bounty. And I think a lot of people in this room right now know Unitary Hack really well, but for others, Unitary Hack is a bug bounty style program designed to reward individuals at every experience level. It's not just a competition. We really approach it as a professional skill building exercise where the participants are building their skills, but also developing or helping develop these tools that they're directly contributing to a more functional and featured quantum computing stack, right? So every year we see a massive collaborative effort with about 1,000 participants. So last year we had over 1,000 with both hackers and maintainers joining forces to solve issues and make the open source ecosystem even better. And a critical part of this mission, plugging back into the community piece, is addressing, our maintainers themselves and the burnout that they might be going through. And historically within the open source ecosystem, within and outside of quantum, a lot of the work is being done at little to no cost with very enthusiastic maintainers who care about the work and who care about progressing the science and the tech. And so Unitary Hack we see it as is an opportunity also to support these maintainers and bring in fresh talent and hopefully solutions to help continue their work on their repositories. We've expanded Unitary Hack past just the online component. We do online programming as well, but we also have started this new program called Hack Days, and this allows student and faculty organizers to create spaces on their own campuses, giving students a dedicated environment to kind of dive into this open source work together, to build relationships locally, because we recognize that we are a global community, and I'm going to say this multiple times, but we also want to decentralize this work and allow people to build their own local communities too, at school and within their neighborhoods. To see the real world impact of this pipeline, I wanted to talk about one of our projects called HHAT, and Eduardo, who is someone that has been in our community for a few years at this point. He started off as a micrograntee. He applied with his HHAT project as for a microgrant with Unitary Foundation, was awarded, worked on his project, and later became a community organizer. So he holds office hours for HHAT to bring in more people and help build the project even further. And we actually have a blog post coming out in a couple of weeks about Eduardo's story. He also is now a maintainer for Unitary Hack, and has last year's Unitary Hack met another contributor who named Inho, who now is actually a maintainer for HHAT as well. So the blog post kind of details their relationship, how they built the relationship out to continue the work that this project is doing. So, it's a good example of how these entry ramps or on-ramps create long-term leaders in the space who then continue to empower others who are new, but really want to make an impact early on. So the next program I want to talk about is unitary design. So as Ben kind of touched on at the beginning, part of our mission is to create a quantum technology ecosystem that benefits the most people. And that means we need to build on-ramps for others, right? Non-physicists, non-engineers, to learn and contribute to quantum in meaningful ways. And so unitary design is actually our newest initiative that's bringing designers, artists, and storytellers into the ecosystem. It works similarly to Unitary Hack, just because we saw the success of that hackathon and wanted to build upon it. But the focus for unitary design is very much documentation, visualization, and science communication at the forefront. And our very first unitary design took place in February of this year, and allowed for new voices to enter the open source quantum space. And it allowed our maintainers and longstanding contributors to think more creatively about the way they present their work and research. So the scientific communication around their research, right? It was a way for people to step out of their comfort zones in many ways, and learn something new. So I wanted to make this a little bit more concrete and show why, we were really focusing on bringing new people in. I want to show a few of our closed issues here for unitary design. So you'll see that, the maintainers for unitary design were approaching the word design in a lot of different ways. So we had some who considered architectural design of their repos, some who took the opportunity to build out educational materials, and still others who approached it in a purely creative way, where they asked the contributors to learn through play, which I'm always a proponent of. So I want to give a very quick example of this. The very last issue that you see here that was closed out was make a penny lane puzzle in the penny lane drawing style. And so this was the winning puzzle that went onto the Penny Lane website. And I'm curious if anyone knows what quantum concept this puzzle is trying to illustrate. If you have ideas, you could drop them in the chat. But yeah, so this is now a part of a larger library of puzzles to get people more excited about these different concepts in quantum, right? And it starts as like a hook, and then people that are not necessarily in quantum just yet get more excited about what we might be doing and how they can contribute. So as Unitary Hack has hack days, as I mentioned, we wanted to create an in-person component to unitary design. And the quantum design hackathon was this iteration of it. It was held at the Microsoft Garage in New York City and proved that anyone can contribute meaningfully to quantum through UX, UI, visualization, and ethical design even. I want to read a very quick excerpt from the blog post that we wrote, which is what is linked here if anyone wants to read further. But I think this kind of captures the essence of the event, what we were shooting for, and what we actually defined as success for an interdisciplinary quantum hackathon that was held in person. So the excerpt goes, the challenge was intense, a 1-day, 6-hour sprint to make the invisible tangible, with 80 hackers split across 9 powerhouse teams, each group, with the support of mentors from different disciplinary backgrounds, took on the challenge of demystifying a specific qubit through creative storytelling and design, ranging from interactive simulations to a hackathon first, a full-blown theatrical debut. So this photo is one of my favorites. It's actually the presentation where the students were performing a very specific qubit, and they asked the audience to turn on their lights to excite the atoms. So I would recommend reading the full blog post to kind of see the successes that we had and who the winners were and what the projects actually looked like. But again, it was very much about science communication. And of the 80 hackers, we had 40 coming from an art or design background and 40 coming from a physics or engineering background, making for a truly interdisciplinary mix. And there was a lot of learning and community and camaraderie that day. And we've had many people ask for another event like this soon. So we're imagining how we might make it bigger and better, especially for the 100+ people that we ended up having to waitlist for this event, because we wanted it to be a little bit smaller this year, just to make sure we were doing the best we could. I know there are questions in the chat. I will address them at the end because I can't see everything on my screen right now. So thanks for your patience with that. The last event I want to chat about is Unitary Con. So as you can see from our last 2 examples, we love having an in-person component to our programming if we can help it. Because we're such a global community, being in person is something that feels like the best way to solidify these community connections that you're forging online. So Unitary Con is our annual in-person gathering. When it first started 4 years ago, it was very much an invite-only retreat style event because we wanted to make sure everyone in that space could meet everybody else. And over the last few years, we've grown a bit, and we've started aligning ourselves with other conferences. So last year we held Unitary Con at IEEE Quantum Week in September. And invited anyone that was a participant to actually join us. So Unitary Con is very much, we approach it as state of our work. So something I haven't said yet is our community is made up of a lot of different types of people, right? So we have our alumni of our microgrant program. We have our sponsors, our UF members. We have partnering organizations. We have enthusiasts and hobbyists in this space. We have people that just want to learn more, from students all the way through people who have been in this field for quite a long time. So Unitary Con is sort of a state of our work, sort of a state of our field opportunity for people to share what projects they're working on, ask for advice, ask for feedback, ask for resources, and really build out community with collaborators, partners, contributors, and sometimes friends too. And the other thing with Unitary Con is, again, like I said, we are a global community, and there's a lot of really incredible work that's being done in pockets around the world, local work. And so wherever we land each year, we try and highlight that ecosystem. So last year for Unitary Con in Albuquerque, we actually had a field trip to the University of New Mexico to see the hardware that they have on campus and the lab work that they do, and to be able to speak to experts, professors and department heads, and talk about the work that they're doing. So a lot of, informal, but also like quite rigorous research that we're talking about here. Okay, so those are the three programs. I want to also talk about now, this is a slide that I often share when I give presentations to students or people that are early in their career that want to kind of jump into our community, but also just the quantum open source space generally. So I say join our Discord. So if you're in here and you haven't joined our Discord, this is our this QR code will take you to our server. But we have over 6K people in the Discord channel, from high school students all the way to people that have been working in this space for a very, very long time. You can ask questions, you can find collaborators, you can just sit in on things and learn. We have our project presentations from our micrograntees that are in our Discord, so you can sit in on those and learn more. It's a good place to kind of get resources and get your feet wet. From there, we say contribute to open source projects like Metric, Mythic, and Clift. These are UF examples specifically, but we also have, HAT, as I mentioned. We have Piccolo, a lot of our microgrant programs, microgrant teas, they have office hours where they look for contributors and people that are continuing to work with them. And we also have people like IBM and INQ that are our partners that hold office hours as well. So these are opportunities to build rapport with maintainers and find where you're most interested in supporting. And then related to that, we say find and participate in hackathons and community gatherings, both within UF spaces and beyond. Again, this is a way to figure out what you're interested in and where your expertise fits in. And finally, when you're a bit more established and you start seeing gaps, like I need to build this tool or this library to continue my research, if you see that this could be impactful for the larger open source ecosystem, apply for a grant, apply for a Unitary Foundation microgrant, because that's what we want to support, right? So asterisks here, of course, the work that we're doing is a small part of the efforts that are being taken in the quantum open source dev space and education space. So I want to show just a quick scattershot of other opportunities. And I kind of organize this chart as like, if this is your background, if this is what you're interested in, this is what you should check out. I'm not going to go into too many of these just to keep us on time. But, we like to orient people towards Quantum Open Source Foundation often. They have a mentorship program, which is in its 10th year. They're on their 10th cohort right now. A good way to find a mentor, a dedicated mentor that you can work with and figure out what you want to do next. I want to point out, QWorld also has these local chapters. So if you're in a place where you feel like there aren't as many programs, you can find one of these chapters or maybe build a new one out. And they plug into a lot of QWorld programs as well, including workshops for beginners. So yeah, these are a lot of people that we work with or are looking to work with. So, and again, small snapshot of the larger work that's being done. I also want to say we do some behind the scenes work too, to try and build more opportunities slowly. So we've worked with UNESCO to put out a paper on the global impact of quantum education and access, which is coming out soon. And within it, we're especially focused on the Global South's access to quantum and how we can bring deeper quantum education to parts of the world that lack access at this time. And this is in hopes that it'll spur even more decentralized and accessible programs and initiatives like these that you see. Yeah, so far, we've been talking about how we're building out access to these spaces. I think going forward, we really want to think about how do we build agency and ownership and community so that people can kind of pick up this mantle and build out more local and more specialized opportunities for people within their personal communities, right? Ben, do you want to run through these really quick?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Veena.
Awesome.
So yeah, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so the first element that we see as guiding our community support strategy is really this lowering the barrier to meaningful contribution, and this goes to the building of the technology itself. We want to make sure that people with no coding experience or low code experience can bring their creativity and their ideas to advance the field, but also that folks with no code or low code experience want to use these tools to advance science in one way or the other, are able to do so easily. If it's an ecologist who wants to study some, you know, environmental impact questions that traditional compute has not been able to provide the answers to. If it's um, uh, someone in the field of chemistry who's looking for vaccine development support, right? These are all players in the community ecosystem. Next slide. We also are looking to decentralize opportunity, again, as a core tenet of our community building work. So that is really, while we continue to provide open source goods and infrastructure to establish tech hubs around the world, really looking to expand intentional investment into the global south. We've been working with UNESCO as a partner recently on some initial steps into that space. But for the field as a whole, we want to see a lot more investment in the global south and other sorts of physical support for folks who want to start their own grassroots organizations around the world. Next slide. Interdisciplinary integration, right? Going to some of what Veena highlighted in our unitary design event, but fundamentally, if quantum is a silo, it's not going to benefit the most people. And so we need to make sure we're breaking down those barriers so that really smart people, creative people across fields are contributing their ideas to make sure that we are building a more accessible, safer, and open tool to really help humanity, right? And so that's designers, that's ethicists, artists, and all of the other disciplines that you can imagine. They have a seat at this table to make this fundamentally a better tech field. Next slide. Sustainable career pathways. So we sort of talked about these on-ramps that we are creating, but really what we need to do is ensure that we are bridging all of the gaps that exist between someone who is interested in becoming a part of this field and creating a career out of that. And we have started to bridge those gaps with some of the programs that we have noted here, but there's a lot more work to do between fellowships or other sorts of industry pipelines that really forefront open source contributions, accessible community-based contributions to the field. Next slide. And finally, radical transparency in grant making is pretty vital. Also, I would say, approach to growing a better, more sustainable quantum technology community. We want our work to be, like I was noting earlier, responsive to the needs of our community. And one of the better ways to do that is put up as much information about our process, our results, to the community that it serves, so that we can get their feedback, not just from things like the Quantum Open Source Survey, which I was noting earlier, but ensuring that we continue to adopt a bottom-up approach to that field, so that we are reaching as many groups or individuals out there as possible. Next slide. Okay, I think I'll pass it over to Veena for some calls to action.
Awesome. Okay, so to close, we want to invite you to help us build out this ecosystem, right? All of those prongs that are coming out of our community. And Mozilla has been a long champion for a healthy internet, and we want to apply those same principles to a healthy quantum future. And so these are just 5 examples that we thought as a springboard, and we hope that you all will kind of help us build these out and maybe iterate upon them and expand them if needed. So the first is support the human layer, which is, help us build out the programming and the funding, like our microgrants and stipends that make this work possible. Our model so far has shown that small targeted capital can be the spark that launches startups and nonprofits and just gets people excited about what they can do to contribute to this ecosystem. The next is create local entry ramps. So help us form the programs, fellowships, and pipelines that allow students and faculty to build their own local communities. By following models like our hack days, we can kind of decentralize the opportunities and reach regions that have been traditionally excluded. Next is to contribute and integrate expertise. So we need more than just physics expertise we're starting to see. We need skills in policy, design, and ethics and beyond. We need help really integrating these perspectives so that quantum tools are built with the same open by design standards that Mozilla has championed for years, right? And we continue to do so at Unitary Foundation as well. We need help amplifying work, right? So sharing your own projects, and this is a call to everyone in our community. Share your own projects and research with us. We want to amplify the work that's being done across our community and our networks to ensure that the progress that we make is being shared across entire commons and isn't being overshadowed by, more proprietary research or announcements that continue to happen. And finally, brainstorm with us. This is an open invite. We want to collaborate with you on regional events and strategic initiatives that ensure that the benefits of this technology reach the most people possible, right? And keep our vision and mission going strong. So we're really excited. We're at a really exciting place for quantum open source, I think, and we're thrilled to keep building this ecosystem and community with you all. Thank you. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing screen so I can actually see you all. But would love to hear, I'll go through the chat to see if there's any questions, but if anyone wants to chime in, please do. Can I get the slides? Yes, we will be sharing these slides as well as this recording with you all.
And I will say on the slides front too, for those who are interested, there's we try to use our website as much of a resource as possible. So between unitary.foundation and our GitHub as well, there's a lot of resources that we try to make available. If you do have more questions, really encourage you to go take a look.
Anyone have any pressing questions right now? Yeah, Jay, please. Good to see you.
Oh, I forgot to open the thingy. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice to see you. Uh, the slide wasn't there, so it's more like a question of why isn't there. Um, the biggest need that I have as somebody who wants to continue developing open source software in the space is ideas for monetization. I feel that's the hardest thing because I mean sometimes I like spend most day thinking how do I solve this technical problem? I don't have time to think on how to monetize the thing. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, well, there goes another day without making billions. But I'm joking with the billions. I'm not actually expecting to make billions, but this is very hard, and I really don't know where to find even ideas from monetization. Monetizing open source is so difficult. So that's the question. Where? where can I find ideas to start with? Not even support, but ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of our like vision for the future too, right? Like our idea is that we've so far built the access, and then even with hackers too, we've seen like people are like, okay, now I'm really excited about this. What next? Right? And like that's the work that we're kind of putting out this call to our community to help us build more ramps for that or pipelines for that what's next, right? But maybe Ben has a specific answer to your question because he unmuted.
Yeah. So I think there's two things, Jay, I want to say on that front. One is that, when I was noting that we should be learning from what other fields have done, there has been sort of a lot of approaches within quantum specifically, but then by extension, the open source ecosystem around it, to to sort of reinvent the wheel. And I'm hopeful that what we can do is, as sort of just resource providers, is bring in experts from other open source fields to say, if you want to try to make a more sustainable career, because right, there are different ways to think about monetizing, either through right community support or through the creation of a startup if that's what you want to pursue, or through the pursuit of other philanthropic opportunities outside of the microgrant, right? If you receive a microgrant, using that as leverage to get in sort of further institutionalized support from other funders. There are also things like a an open source, and sort of thinking on my toes here, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to come up with the URL, but there's a open source endowment that was created, I believe, about a year ago. And that is another really interesting idea. It's I think it's endowment.dev, should be the URL. And the idea behind it, though, right, is that because these are open source tools used by so many, there should be an endowment that is created just to sort of continue the support of that work. And that's another area I would encourage you to check out.
Cool, thank you. And yeah, I just Googled it while you were speaking. It's definitely in .dev. Cool,
Yeah.
thank you.
Questions? Also, we did get a right answer in the chat. It was superposition.
Yeah.
The puzzle. Awesome.
That shin right at the end was like a helpful giveaway. Well, want to sort of thank everyone for joining. Renek, we will post the slides. I, I don't know if you want to put them on the blog or on Discord. I'm not sure which of those two, but we'll make sure that there's an announcement sent around so that you can easily find both the slides and the recording. And just wanted to sort of reiterate that we really do view our work as a communal effort. So if you do have questions, you can always find us on the Discord. And also, if you have other ideas for projects or funding mechanisms that you wish you saw in our field, we're always excited and happy to talk more about that. So I just wanted to thank everyone for joining and for listening today. Cool. All right, everyone. Thanks. Talk soon.